Hello, this is Virtually Connecting. I'm Simon Ensor in France, and we're connecting with the OER 17. And I think we better get over there very quickly because they're going to be short for time. So, Martin and everybody, can you give us a shout?
Hi. 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 Hi.
Right, so we have Maren. Could you quickly present yourself?
Hi there, I'm Maren Deepwell. I'm the CEO of Albany Organisers.
Great.
Hi,
and Lucy?
Sorry, I was jumping the gun. I'm Lucy Crompton-Reid. I'm the CEO of Wikimedia UK.
Hi, and I'm Lisa Tanner, and I'm a postgrad student at the OU.
Right.
And I'm Martin Weller.
Okay, your impressions for this second day.
Well, Lucy just had a keynote.
So, yeah, how do you think it went, Lucy? How are you finding the OER conference?
Well, I'm going to tackle the second question first. So I'm really enjoying the conference. I was just actually talking to Martin offline about how much I've enjoyed this conference. I really enjoyed OER 16, but the two conferences have had quite a different feel. And I think part of that is the physical architecture of the space that we're in. We're in a sort of quite a more of a relaxed sort of contemporary conference space here, whereas in Edinburgh we were in the beautiful hallowed halls of Edinburgh University, and it's really interesting how that lends a different flavour to not so much to the sorts of conversations, but certainly the dynamic during the presentations and the workshops and the keynote speeches. At least that's been my feel. So when I was imagining doing the keynote this year, I probably had in my mind that more formal setup from last year, and I liked the fact that it felt less formal this year. And in terms of how it went, I don't know. I mean, I think doing a presentation, it's quite hard to feel whether or not you're connecting with the audience. And I think obviously there'll be some people who will have liked what I said and others that won't. But I feel like the response, certainly through Twitter, has been very positive, and people have been sharing things that I said, and it seemed to resonate in some way. So yeah, so I'm quite happy with that. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions from the distant people while we've got the guys there, OER 17?
Yeah. No, we just saw her name.
Have you already given your presentation, Lisa?
I did, yes.
Yeah, what was it about?
It was about the challenges of using open educational resources for teacher education in Ghana, and kind of a step back looking at their development, formally and informally, of digital literacies.
I was actually in that session, and I was quite struck by it. And one of the things that you talked about was the teacher shortage. And I think you said that across the whole of sub-Saharan Africa, there's a teacher shortage of 25 million primary school teachers, which is, puts the UK teacher shortage in perspective, really. But also the fact that the other thing that really struck me was that in some instances, people who are in teacher training environments, who are going to be autonomous decision makers and standing up in front of classes of children in a few years' time, are sort of being treated almost like they're sort of being infantilized a little bit, and sort of wearing gingham dresses and sleeping in dormitories. And that's not to sort of criticize that structure, but it's how conflict inherent in that when you're training people to be leaders, which I think is what teachers are, and facilitators. But those are some of the things that stuck in my mind from your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad to see we've got Dinah from Ghana who might have something. Can they comment as well?
I think I don't know whether her mic's.
I think Dinah's been posting in the chat.
Okay. So she's assistant librarian of Ashesi, is that how you pronounce it? University College in Ghana. Okay, cool.
So I'm hoping to do a field trip in June this year. Ethics committee approving, funding approving, and I'm hoping it's on the south coast. Well, just in case it doesn't happen yet. To do some in-depth interviews to find out what's going on formally, informally, what they're actually valuing, prescribed curriculum at national level and at college level. Are there any tensions there? And then using mobile devices, for example, who develop their own practices, because apparently pretty much
penetration. Yeah.
Pretty much everybody's got a mobile device, and that wasn't the case when I was there 10 years ago. Right. Nobody had a Nokia 3310 then.
I've actually been really struck by how international this conference participation has been, and it's great to see you guys joining us, because I ran a workshop yesterday afternoon, and about half the participants from the UK and the other half were from Europe, from the US, and from Asia, and from Canada as well. So it's been really interesting actually to see how much more international this conference has been this year. We've had lots of different global perspectives, so I think it's great to see you guys joining us from different parts of the world. But has that been your impression as well? It's been really international?
I've met people from Mexico and Venezuela and New York and Sweden. Yeah, it's been fantastic. And I think that's partly because there doesn't seem to be the equivalent of this conference replicated elsewhere. It does seem to be quite unique.
I was saying to Lucy earlier, I don't think I've ever been to a conference where the theme of the conference has been so well represented. So often you give a conference a theme, it bears no resemblance to the papers you get in. So that the politics of open has kind of been really driven through a lot of the papers, and to really sort of set the flavour for the conference. I don't think it's been a more timely theme for the conference I've ever been to.
And just some informal feedback on the kind of setup for the couple of days. You've already mentioned the physical space, which has been lovely and even makes it a bit like an unconference because it's so informal. But also, all the keynote speakers are female on the whole.
Yeah,
they're all women. They're not all just white British women of a certain age. You know, and there's sorry, gentlemen of a certain age, but coming into this kind of academic sphere as somebody of a certain age myself, I worried about that, but I didn't need to really, because I found sisters here.
Actually, I hope Lucy won't mind sharing that with us, but I found out as one of the organizers that actually none of our keynote speakers, Maha, and also yesterday Diana and today Lucy, have ever given a keynote at a conference like this before. So I think it was really interesting, and I'm curious to see if any of you who are joining us virtually have been able to watch the keynotes, if you'd had any thoughts, any favorite bits, because I think that's really struck me. It's been a really strong voices coming through that we don't hear as much. So hopefully you might have been able to join and watch some of the streams online.
Yeah,
Mark?
they were all spot on.
Graham?
Yeah.
A few words.
Say again?
A few words.
No, there was just one comment I wanted to make to Lucy, since she's on this call. But in terms of Wikipedia pages and links to academic papers, from what I've sort of read over the years, where possible, Wikipedia editors tend to prefer open access content as opposed to paywalled content. But the one thing I found about yesterday that I didn't know about, I think it was started back in October last year. Lucy probably knows Wikipedian Daniel Meachin. No?
Yeah.
Yes. But I think this is a project of his, but I think it started around about October, but I only found out yesterday. But as well as Wikipedia pages linking to open access, gold open access papers, it now links to green open access. Mm-hmm. And there's actually green coloured links next to the, if there's a reference that's a green version of an open access paper, that's now flagged up, which is cool, and I hadn't seen it before. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sorry, you were cutting out a little bit, but Daniel Meachin has been heavily involved in that, and generally in sort of opening up access to citations. And there is an initiative that I really wanted to announce during but it launches at 9:30 a.m. today Pacific time, which isn't until 5:30 p.m. UK time. I wasn't able to talk about it, but watch this space. I will be tweeting either tonight or tomorrow morning about an initiative. Wikimedia UK is one of the stakeholders, and the foundation in the States is one of the founding organisations of this. But I think it's quite exciting in terms of open access to citations. So more to come shortly. And I'm sorry I can't talk about it now. It's strictly embargoed. So.
Or yourself closest to the week.
I know.
That's That sounds good. Excellent.
Well, I think you should tell us, because who could do that? It's just us.
But it does make me realise, Mark. It did, yeah. It has made me realise, Mark, it must be very, very early in Oakland.
Yes, 2 mornings in a row I've been up at 2 a.m.
Oh, that is dedication. I'm really, that's really impressive.
It's foolishness. So I'm about 5 miles from the Wikimedia offices and the Creative Commons offices.
Right.
So I'm a student. I'm a beginner, total beginner, that just finished a 2-year degree. And my question is, are there degrees based on open resources yet? I'm looking at probably going for a master's in education if I live long enough. And I would be interested in any examples that you might have.
Martin knows of one.
Have you looked at the OERU and the work they do with the OERU? So it's a collection of different universities have joined a consortium, and all the courses in there are made up from open educational resources and are openly available. So that's a good place to look. I don't know whether they'd have your subject area. That's a good place to start looking.
Okay, yeah, I just stumbled upon OER through the back door, so I'll look some more. Thank you.
Hi, Nadine.
Hi.
Hi guys, sorry I'm late.
Don't worry.
I just landed in London actually. I'm at the airport waiting for my connecting flight to the US.
Oh wow! So you're in transit.
Yep, I'm where you guys are, but not exactly. How's it going? How's the second day of the conference?
Good.
Tell me all the stuff.
You were
all
well,
the details.
actually, at Border Control.
I was just in a really interesting session where there were 5 or 6 different presentations. And what Martin was just saying a few minutes ago, Nadine, which you missed, is that for this conference, the theme of the politics of both, and that was very much the case in the presentations that I was in. So there was a presentation by a guy, I think it was John Casey, about neoliberalism and damage and continues to cause, particularly in terms of creating a democratic deficit in education, and the role that the state, the responsibility of the state in that. And then Lorna Campbell, who is very, very closely involved in open education, and that's her role really at Edinburgh University, and she's also a trustee. But she gave a really such a passionate and personal talk about the way in which the sort of global issues at the moment are affecting her emotionally. It means that she's sort of conflating the personal and the political, but that's appropriate in this setting. And she sort of quoted about the feminist rallying call of the personal as the political. So yeah, I've been really stimulated today, actually.
Yeah.
The Trump Brexit panel went very well yesterday, Nadine. That was a big success. So.
Thank you guys for catching me up on what you were just talking about. Yeah, Martin, I really enjoyed that talk. I was watching it through Autumn's Periscope.
Okay.
It was pretty interesting, and I was live tweeting and interacting with the audience as well. So it was very interesting. We had a back channel conversation on open travel and open movement.
Yeah, it was interesting how two people made that connection about laptops and flights, open air. So it's great.
I mean, about like three or 4 weeks ago, Jim was like, do you want to contribute with a video segment on how Trump and Brexit policies are affecting open education in your context? And I could not see a direct effect, to be honest. I couldn't see a direct influence, but then the ban came out, and then I knew that I was traveling to the US, and I knew that it was a week before my, or 10 days before my thesis proposal deadline. And like I said, I'm doing my thesis openly. And that just basically means I'm working on it online all the time and interacting with people online, even my supervisor. And then they just say that I can't have my laptop. And then I have to figure out a way to get a laptop that I'm not that scared for it to be lost or something in the luggage, and it was just a disaster. But like I sort of tried to see the positive in it, and I figured it would be a good idea to contribute it with my video segment about that, and not that it's a positive or anything, but still showing how these policies really do affect open education and open scholars everywhere around the world, and not just in the Middle East. And the point that I was making yesterday as well is that anybody who is traveling through these 9 countries as well, it's not just me who's traveling from one of these 9 countries, it's anybody from Asia or Australia going that direction has a connecting flight there, and that restricts their movement heavily, because if they do have their electronics, they have to check it in at the connecting flight, and it's just, and it opens the question of visas and opens the questions of access. And I mean, open education, like the very main affordance of open education is that you should be able to work on it everywhere, anytime, whether you're a student or a teacher or a contributor or anything, and that just stops you from doing that. That's like the most basic, the first affordance of open education, essentially, and it sort of it just defeats the purpose. So it was very frustrating, but I'm happy that I came out with that conclusion and made that connection with Jim and Maha as well.
How would that affect me? You know, from Craig. But you have to give your laptop up, and the implications of that as well. You know, so that's okay.
We have some a few sound problems here.
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, I think there's a bit of feedback from. I just wondered if Maron wanted to give any impressions as the conference head honcho.
Well, I thought we were just talking about personal and political, and I think one of the things in some of the sessions that I've been to is that I felt it's been really personal. Actually, the theme has, I think, brought out a lot of how close, you know, the values we hold are being contested in a political and in a personal sense. And I actually feel I was quite surprised at some of the sessions how much people have been sharing. And I think actually having this conversation now is actually quite personal, and we're all aware that it's, you know, being recorded and it's going to be on YouTube and so on. And I actually think
it's going to go viral. I mean, this shit's going to go viral, right? I mean, we just need a toddler to come running in.
Yeah, that's all we need. I think it's made me reflect on how important it is as a forum, you know, that we are actually coming together and letting these conversations happen, and that we're amplifying that voice. Because I think that's really key, that we're actually able to, you know, put that out in the open and then have a voice. So I think as one of the organizers, that's probably one of the key things I feel I've been getting out of the event, is actually being able to listen to some of these conversations which go, you know, beyond the kind of immediate problem solving or how to use OER in a teaching context. I mean, we've had a lot of sessions about academic issues as well, but I think from my personal point of view, it's been really empowering to see how much people have been investing into that conversation, and having a very free conversation. So I think that's kind of my key takeaway, how much the theme has brought out of us.
It's a bit of a group hug, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. So maybe it's like
I completely agree with you. I mean, yesterday during the panel when Naha was talking about her personal experience when she was going through security, and she shared something that was very personal, and I felt that she was empowered to do that, but also I felt empowered listening to it, because again, it was on a recorded live stream session. It was during the panel, and it was directly as a response or as a reaction to the video segment that I had shared, which was my personal experiences with this. And I feel like I completely agree with you. The fact that we're opening up this way, and like we're sort of opening up to each other and to the world, and that's again embodying all of these open education values, and I think that's just wonderful.
I'd be interested in the UK perspective on Brexit, because I'm British. I'm going to have to become French, and I'm working with British universities and other universities around the world. And for me, it's quite a weird experience talking to you there over in London.
Yeah,
with me in France, it's quite weird.
I mean, what Brexit, you say? I can't comment politically on Brexit. It's not something I'd be able to do because we're a non-partisan organisation and we have no view on Brexit at all. So no, sorry. Someone else will have to answer that one.
I've never actually met anybody who voted leave, but maybe they're just saying that. I'm not sure. So I don't. London didn't vote to leave, nor did Scotland or Brighton or Newbury.
It's probably quite a big topic when we've got that many to go.
I think, but actually, I think to be more serious about it, I definitely think it depends on the sort of community that you're in. So by and large, you know, the community that I'm in, and by that I mean the sort of physical community and the virtual community. You know, we are at a personal level, you know, absolutely horrified, terrified, disgusted by Brexit. You know, that's a very personal thing. At an organisational level, of course, we have to be neutral as well. But of course, there are the majority of people did vote leave, so we are not connecting clearly with those people. And although I'm not really ready yet to say and so on, because I'm still too. There does come a point when we are going to start having conversations, because the conversation here will be, I think we'll probably all be of one mind, but we do need to be talking to people who did vote leave and find out what was underpinning that, because I don't think it was about the EU at all, to be honest. But yeah, that's just mine.
You're right, it's a particular challenge for open education because it is a factor of education.
Yeah.
I think we're probably going to have to go.
Okay, then.
9 people. So.
Okay, well, thanks very much. I'm sure there'll be much more to discuss in the coming years.
Indeed.
Really nice to meet you all. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
I hope your flight goes well, Nadine.
Thank you so much, Martin. That's very kind of you. I hope to see you guys again soon.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your conference. Bye. Take care.
Right. So Nadine, where are you flying to? Maybe we shouldn't say
I'm
this.
flying to Chicago. No, it's okay.
Okay.
It's hectic, and I tweeted a picture this morning when I arrived to the airport, and they had huge signs that were saying, "Oh, no laptops," or like they had these crosses on all these electronic devices, and I just tweeted it out and I said, my worst nightmare coming true, because I've been dreading this moment for the past 2 weeks constantly.
Yeah. It's quite frightening.
It's just awful, but oh well. Can't really do anything about it. How was the session? I'm sorry I came in late. It took a long time to get through security.
Well, let's speak to Mark.
Yes.
How was the session,
How
Mark?
was the session?
Can you quickly recap me?
This particular session?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very good. I watched the presentation, so they gave a very good synopsis very quickly, which was nice for people who didn't watch.
Yeah.
So I'm struck by how affected the academy is by the political shift. I also live in a bubble in the Bay Area in California. There are no Trump supporters here. But it's very interesting. I'm always struck that nobody ever speaks to a class in the academy, and obviously that's a big part of what's going on. You know, it's the class war has. Was it you, Simon, that said yesterday that the privilege is shrinking?
Sorry, can you repeat
Somebody
again?
yesterday said. Was that a yes? Anyway, so somebody said yesterday that privilege is shrinking, and so to be at this conference is just watching that in effect. Again, in the Bay Area, I don't see that.
I have a little story to tell about the Brexit thing and Twitter. The other day, I was looking at a Facebook stream, and I fell upon a trolling incident of the Scottish First Minister. And I looked at this, and I looked at the tweet, and it was horrendous. It was horrendous. It was basically accusing the Scottish First Minister, who's proposing independence, as being a traitor, and that we should basically hang her. Yeah.
That's American political consultants.
What? That's awful.
Just a moment. Just a moment. When I actually looked at the name on the troll, I actually knew who this person was.
Oh, interesting.
Personally.
And yeah, from childhood. And
oh God.
This was actually, it wasn't so much a surprise, but it was a feeling both of sadness and a feeling of a sort of connection, because when you've grown up with somebody as a kid and you go in very, very different paths, you suddenly realize that the mobility that I have had, or the vision I've had in terms of moving around, this he never had. He never had this possibility. And in the context that he went to work in a factory when he was like 16, and his working life stopped at the age of maybe 45, 50, and that was it. So for somebody who's had limited education, what does he hang on to? Is this sort of feeling of patriotism? His identity? It's actually very scary, the whole thing.
It is, and that raises the question of privilege and access to education. But it also reminds me of a conversation I kept having with so many different people throughout the last couple of months, which is, it's funny how you find out these different layers of somebody's identity, and it only comes up through instances like these, or basically online. So you can sort of make, I don't want to say judgment, but you can get an impression about someone, about their personality, by the way that they interact with someone, by they troll or not, by whether or not they're careful of netiquette, whether they're willing to share resources. All these different interactions online are very good lens into somebody's identity, and it keeps showing these different layers. And it's surprising that it keeps coming up, and these different things you would have never thought about.
Yes, yeah, I also have a lot of Trump supporters on my Facebook because of they're people I went to high school with, and they have that exact same experience. Most of them don't live in California.
Where did you go to high school, Mark?
And near Los Angeles, a little town called Whittier, which is a Republican town that gave us Richard Nixon, who was president when I was in high school. Those were interesting times. And all of my friends who we, well, this is being recorded, isn't it? We were young, and it was Los Angeles in the late 60s. And those friends that I had so much fun with all moved to Utah and Arizona and other very more poor and rural places. And like Simon said, they haven't had a job in 15 or 20 years, and they're angry. So it's, I do get that look through Facebook, but like I said, in Oakland, the anger comes from a different direction. Although there's plenty of anger.
I think that there is this feeling. When you see, for example, people at conferences, that you see the happiness of sharing and going to the pub or going to visit sites, and you see that happiness. And for people who can't actually access that, it's really quite difficult to deal with.
Well, especially when you realize that most of these conferences are run on public resources.
Sure.
And so that's another factor that I hear a lot about on my Facebook page. And that's why the big call for the downsizing, because they see people running around the world having a grand life and mostly on public resources. And their food stamps are being cut and their health care is disappearing. So it's in some ways understandable.
And I think the other thing is if one takes just YouTube, a friend of mine in West Africa, I said, well, you can join us in the V Connecting session. You can even, he said, I can't because I'm busy in a session, in a meeting. He said, I'll look at it on YouTube. And then a few hours later, he said, I can't watch it on YouTube because we are not allowed to watch YouTube between this time and this time at the university. And that puts everything in perspective, because we need to have the conversations with people that are not actually in our context. But that also promotes problems, because we're going to be confronted by all these different conflicting feelings about the system in which we're living. And I think that is the challenge, really.
Absolutely, and it's a challenge to have these global conversations and all of these outcomes, or all of these 21st century learning skills that we want to teach our students, which are becoming global citizens. All of these limitations on open education and open access, and the shying away from public resources like that, or public and online, sort of hinders that possibility in a great way. And there are two reflections that I want to say about what you both were saying. One is I can't help but see the similarity, the massive similarity between what is going on with Brexit and with Trump, and what went on in Egypt a few years back with the revolution, and that divide, right? That dichotomy that happens in a nation with like two sides of supporters, where initially, before that happens, or before that major incident happens, you would sort of get the feeling that everybody's on the same side, and the nationalistic feeling, and you're there and you're with everybody, and everybody's going and calling for the public good, and everybody seems to be wanting the same thing. Everybody seems to be on the same side. But then as soon as something major like that happens, there's just like that massive split, and you're like, was I imagining all of this, or did I completely misunderstand it because I was looking at it from my own angle and from my own context? So it's just a massive similarity. And the second reflection completely went away. I should speak as soon as I think of something.
Because I think this also brings up another question, because a lot of open education resources have come from people who aren't actually being paid to produce them, and people spending time on efforts which they're not being paid for. And all of this is something which is commendable, but at the same time is worrying, because it becomes expected. You will do these sort of things for nothing.
Yeah, this is one of my concerns about, I always wanted to finish my education after I retired. And so now I walk into this world that's pretty much in chaos, higher education. And I could see that I could spend the next 5 or 6 years, as the student labor. And I'm too old for that, and I'm too working class for that. There's no way that I'm going to work for free. It's just, I can just play online. I mean, I'm lucky I spent 20 years in Silicon Valley, and I managed to retain some of my pension. I was there, I lost my house and half my pension, but I'm still good compared to most people. So, That's
I
my
think
interest in open resources and international education.
I think that we have to open towards other issues. People spend so much time being occupied, which in the word in itself says a lot, that we actually forget, you know, how other people are actually living in exactly the same spaces, but are seeing it in a very different way. I mean, if you go, I don't know, perhaps in your places, but when I go into the university early in the morning and I meet the cleaning ladies who have been now from 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, and who are put in competition, the ones against the others, to do it cheaper and cheaper and faster. This is where we're all. I think we have a responsibility to have conversations with people who, you know, are part of the same communities and who don't share those privileges that we have.
I agree, and now that model is being expanded up the hierarchy. This is the way I look at it. You know, 25 years ago, being a janitor at a university was a pretty good gig.
Mm.
Your children went to university for free. You had health care. You know, you had union protection in some places. And so that was the camel's nose under the tent, or the thin edge of the wedge, or whatever metaphor is appropriate. You know, when the janitor, or I think it was the food service workers, went on strike at Harvard, that to me was just a loud clarion call that something was wrong.
I just want to bring in Dinah into this because she just wrote a chat, a long comment. So she says she feels excited about connecting to people from different countries. And there's a good discussion on open education, open access, and it's broadened her horizon as a librarian. And then she says, I wrote a paper on open access versus fair use. And open access eliminates the high cost of subscriptions to journals. What criteria will universities use, this is a question, to select students if there is no academic admission requirement for open access education? I think that's the question, Dinah, is that it? What criteria will universities use to select students if there is no academic admission requirement for open access education?
Well, I can speak to that. In California, we have a tiered system of education. We have 112 two-year colleges that are, you know, more for vocational training, but they are linked to the university. And we have, I forget, 40 or 50 state universities, and then we have 10 universities of California, like UC Berkeley. And it's the community colleges that have completely open access. So they're the ones that have been dealing with this issue for decades, and California being a magnet for all over the world. You know, we have students literally from every country of the world, and this creates issues. I guess problems isn't the right word, but issues of, you know, assessment and grade, you know, grade placement into different levels, and that as they pour more and more social issues into the community college, it's become very interesting. And of course, then you have the whole identity groups competing for resources, because it is open access. As each new wave of immigrants comes into an area, then they have to band together in order to get resources for their community around the community college. So it's this cycle that continues. And this is a huge question. How do you assess students? And the students who English is their second language are fighting back, because that's a way to keep them out, to keep them in an endless loop of remedial classes, and they never matriculate.
Nadine is saying she says thanks for a wonderful conversation and see you all soon. And she'd love to continue it, but she's got to run.
Understandable.
Yeah. So yeah, this business of tiered education, I can speak a little about that from a French context. We have universities which are open for people with baccalaureate, and those can be people from all sorts of schools with baccalaureate, and officially there's no selection to most university degrees. The problem comes, of course, is that a lot of the students are not adapted to the university education, and so the first year in effect becomes a selective process. So they arrive in the first year, and you may have, I don't know, 1,600 students. But the following year you have 300. So it is increasingly a problem, because there's more in unemployment. There are more and more people who end up in university as a sort of holding pen. And then you have a higher tier education, which is engineering schools. And again, these are elite schools. So the idea there is some sort of equality, there's none. And I think that that's the case in most countries, from what I can understand.
Yeah, that the state universities in California are actually following that model, in that they are opening up now to anyone with an associate's degree. So they are now accepting students who have squeaked through the chaos of the community colleges, and they're just as unprepared for university. And then it always comes down to a question of support. There are plenty of models that virtually anyone can adapt to the university, but they have to be supported financially and, psychologically or emotionally. The research is clear, but the funding is just not there.
Yeah, it's a good question. The funding is not there, so where is it?
Oh, well, that's an easy question to answer in the United States. With the military budget twice the size of the rest of the world combined, that's a very simple question to answer. The trick is getting the money away from the people with the guns. They're not inclined to let go of it.
Maybe we should stop there.
I'm up for that. There's probably another session rolling out on YouTube.
Dina, are you ready to stop? Yeah, okay. I think that's maybe
too much politics. We need more open education resources.
Maybe. We'll talk about that in the next session, maybe.
All right.
Thanks very much, both of you. Speak to you later.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.